means truth. So tell me about your spiritual journey.
This is Lindsay Warwick with The Conduit, Tattva Tuesday. It has been a while since I've recorded, probably like 7 months or so. I'm pretty sure the last episode was with Nancy Weiss in November. And then just so much has happened with me, with my life journey, that I took a little bit of a pause on the podcast. But recently, through some divinely inspired events, I've been really pushed to put the podcast back on the air, whatever. So I'm really excited for my guest today. This is Odeani McBean. What's up?
What's going on? So I'm like the first one after the hiatus.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. No pressure.
Oh man. It's okay. We got this.
Yeah, for sure. So for any first-time listeners, Tattva Tuesday. Tattva is a Sanskrit word that means truth. And so the concept of my podcast has been to bring on people of, all kinds of backgrounds to come on here and talk about their spiritual journey. And then we kind of just let the conversation flow in its own way. All of the other episodes have been recorded in one take. And that is what kind of is unique and special about this podcast. It's very raw and real and no edits. So I'm super stoked to have you on the podcast. I've known you for a while. We grew up in the same town. So I guess we'll just start at the beginning, right? And everyone's like, ugh, when I say this, but tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about your spiritual journey, and we'll just kind of flow with it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate that. I love to have these kind of conversations. So I appreciate that. I'm like filled with gratitude. So thank you.
I'm grateful to have you.
Yeah, awesome. Sorry, good. No, so I was born in Kingston, Jamaica. And I moved to America when I was 8 or 9, somewhere around there, 3rd grade. So I moved to Trenton, New Jersey, and
what up?
Where I right.
That's where I was born.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where, I was raised. It's where I currently reside right now. And, we went to school, we know the same folks. And I went on to go to Morgan State in Baltimore, Maryland, got my undergrad there, got my MBA from Rutgers. And I would say in the midst of becoming a dad is kind of where my spiritual journey took its own path. I think, like many of us, I kind of grew up in a spiritual practice that was like passed on to me, So when I had my first child, went through like a very rough custody battle, basically. And it was through that I had to kind of just go on this self journey, of like everything that I believed in. And I was, at the time, I was what you would consider like super Christian. And I had just kind of like was just asking the universe, like, all right, like, where should I go with this? If this is where I need to be spiritually, I'm fine with that. But I just kind of like, I need to kind of be guided a little bit more, like, and that opened my mind to reading how other cultures practice spirituality. So I started reading like about a lot of the Eastern philosophy of spirituality, and it blew my mind. And this was about 2018 or so. It's when I was kind of like in the pits. And at that time, I started to meditate very heavily. That's when my meditation practice started. I started to journal heavily. And I basically resonated a lot with just like the Eastern kind of view of spirituality. Like, a lot of Buddhism things, like I read like hours and hours on like this practice called Dzogchen. It's like a Tibetan Buddhism practice of meditation. And like this whole idea of non-duality, like just like I could not escape it. And so what I do now, obviously, like I have a sitting on the cushion practice, but the spirituality part for me is like I've come to the conclusion that, I'm no separate than you. We're just like extensions of each other. So like how I treat you is how I would treat myself. And we're humans. So that's the awesome part about it. I'm gonna fuck up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like but just having that view of how I interact with people on a day-to-day is really my practice, like off the cushion, just kind of like moving about my day, picking up random shit on the floor wherever I'm at, because I'm not separate from the environment. Like my family members think I'm weird, you know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
most
you're
people,
not.
yeah, right. So that's how most people view what I do. But this is why I love having these type of conversations, because I feel like, like the more we like are on like, it's like I heard somebody say, you're like tapped into a higher consciousness when you hear things that you don't know to be true, but you're able to like give it a go. Like, maybe, like, you know what I mean? And that's where I was when I started this journey. It was just like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not separate from the universe and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And I just had to kind of like surrender. And so that's where my spiritual journey is now. It's kind of one that is a belief that everything is happening for a specific reason. I feel like my kids chose me to be their parent, their parent before.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where I am now, is just like operating in a certain way that makes me able to better manage like the human experience, because that's really what I'm doing, I would say.
Yeah. Oh my God. There's so much to what you just said. First of all, I'm so happy to have you on the podcast again. It is so refreshing when I have men on the podcast, because I think that there's a whole healthy male movement happening spiritually and collectively, where men are like going deep within themselves. And I think it takes vulnerability and courage as a man to come on, a podcast like this and talk vulnerably about like, a custody battle or like just everything that you said. And honestly, like you are the first or second African American on my podcast. And I'm so happy that you're here. And
Awesome.
I mean, we're friends on Facebook too, and you always crack me up with like some of the stuff you post, and I'm just excited to have you, keep it real as well. So, I guess I wanted to there's so many things that I want to dive into, but I want to talk about, I know, I want to talk about how you were, you were researching different cultures and religions. I guess maybe you didn't say religion, but you said different cultural practices. So can you like talk more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So what happened was I discovered a man by the name of Alan Watts on YouTube. And one of my favorite books that he wrote, I have like a lot of his books, and one of them is called The Wisdom of Insecurity or something like that. I believe that's what he's talking about. And he's basically talking about how in a lot of different cultures outside of like Western areas, they actually believe that they like co-create like the universe, right?
Yeah.
And that was like super foreign to me. But then the way he was speaking about it in the book is like, well, and I also like to preface this by like, I think everybody's spiritual path is awesome as long as you revert to it when in times of need, right? Like, so if you are like Christian, if you're Muslim or Hindu, like, I think majority of it leads to how you treat the person next to you.
Yeah.
I think that's important. So I'm not here to, this is wrong, this is right kind of vibe. You know what I mean? So I just want to preface with that. But he was basically saying, I resonated with it because he's like a lot of people, and I knew I was one of these people. So if others aren't, then that's great. But he was saying, we kind of like have this fear, and we kind of like believe in someone being like the boss because of our insecurities, our own insecurities. And I was like, damn, like that makes perfect.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, for me, it resonated. And that's why I love life, because it's like you just latch on to whatever resonates with you, right? And so I just kept reading. He has a book called The Way of Zen. I kept reading his books, and then like I listened to a lot of his talks, and a lot of his talks, he basically says like, you're not able to fully understand how you're living until you see how other people are living. And when he did that, that's what made me really like just dive into like all the books. Like I have like books on Hinduism, books on Buddhism, like I have books on like Tao, like like books on like
Yeah.
how Japanese and Chinese and how they view the universe, how they view God, and just all types of stuff. And I really resonated with that type of practice.
Yeah.
It was more so like the world is yours, and like go for it and put these things into play and see what happens. And I really resonated with that. You know what I mean? And so yeah, man, this is not a flex because I feel like books are books. Like you don't even have to finish them. Just grab what you can get from them. But I've read like, I want to say like over like 30 books on this stuff. Like just by like being passionate about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm reading like books that are like talks that are like typed out. Like
I love that.
so it's like a student is asking a question and some guy is like, do you see it now? And most people would be like, this is hella weird, but I'm like, yo, I totally vibe with this. Like,
Yeah.
so that's what led me to kind of taking this type of journey, like more of a meditation and more of a like universe type thing,
Yeah.
like, the source
I
energy.
love it. I think
Yeah.
it's amazing. And so I'm assuming then you've started to incorporate the practices that you've been reading about, right? So now
Yeah.
you're meditating. And I have to say, like, I hit my knees and pray every day, but I also meditate. And I feel like when we pray, like for me, it's like I'm asking God, and then when I'm meditating, I'm listening to hear for the answers.
Yeah. So that's a great point, because like some people, I was just talking about this with somebody. I don't think I don't think they thought that I pray, right? Because like, oh well, you're not a Christian, you must not pray. And I'm like, what?
Oh
So
yeah, it's total right.
yeah, I'm like, everyone prays, like, you know what I mean? And it's like, for me, when I pray, it's like I'm more so asking, like, I think divine is, we just have different names. That's just my opinion, right? So
Yeah,
what
I
some people will
agree.
call God, the other will call the universe or source. As long as you know, or you don't have to, but as long as you feel like there's life is bigger than this, right? There's something bigger than like whatever's happening right now. So whatever you choose to call that works for me.
Which is
So
what I was gonna ask you what you call
great question. So I used to call it God, but I realized when I converse with other people, it's really confusing, because they're like, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, oh, they don't really understand. So I just go with the whole like universe source vibe thing, because I feel like then they kind of understand it, because they probably know other people who talk like that.
it. Yeah.
Like, because I remember one day I was like, man, like I think I said like, "Man, God is good," and somebody was like, "What do you mean? I thought you didn't believe in God."
And then
I
you're
was like,
like, oh shit.
"Bro, I never told
I
you
do
that."
that
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
I feel like
So,
God has all these like for me, it's God, source, goddess, creator, creation, and it's all the same for me. That's part of the reason why I started this podcast, because I was so fascinated with like everyone's experience with God, whatever
right,
that is.
right. Yup, yup. And I just feel like it's something that like is so big, it's so powerful. Like I have a hard time even conceptualizing it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh, yeah,
like
100%.
so I do it because that's how we talk. But like, I can't really explain it. It's like ineffable. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, yeah,
Yeah,
that thing. So
I hear you. I sometimes it's
yeah,
really hard to verbalize and vocalize spiritual experiences as well.
yeah, yeah.
Like I feel like I'm honestly currently going through one right now. I don't have the words for it yet. I'm just
Hmm,
flowing with
hmm.
it and kind of listening to that intuition. And I want to touch back on what you said before about co-creating with the universe. Like, so you and I both believe that there is something beyond ourselves, bigger than ourselves, but yet we also believe that we are co-creating with that. So it's
Yeah,
that I'm probably going to butcher this quote, but it's the quote that's like, you are the drop in the ocean, but you're also the whole ocean. It's like
yeah.
that whole like
Uh,
concept.
so one of my favorite Alan Watts quotes about this, he's basically like, we don't come, people think we come into the world, but into the universe, but he's like, we actually come from it. And so he says, just like an apple tree apples, the universe peoples. And
Oh,
yeah, like,
yo, I gotta read this guy.
yeah, yeah. So, and then like, I was driving when he said this shit, and I was like, damn. I was like, because I have like hour-long drives a lot of the times, right? So like I'm in the car and he's like, yeah, just like an apple tree apples, the universe peoples. And I'm like, yeah.
It does. It certainly peoples.
So, but it will not like, and the good thing about it is like it may not resonate with my next door neighbor like when they hear that. And that's fine. As long as we're like treating each other good, like it doesn't matter, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
um when he said that, I was like, that makes perfect sense. Like, and it's just kind of that thing. It's like you probably were here before. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
if you would have said that to me like 2000 and like 17 or prior, I would have been like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, you know what I mean? But now it's like I see it, man. It's just crazy. So yeah, I agree with you. It's like you're like the ripple, but you're also like the ocean for sure.
Yeah. And I remember, I can't recall the exact dates. I'm not amazing with dates because time's not real.
I suck at dates, and
I
yep,
suck at dates, but
I just explained this to my son the other day about time, about
oh,
not
did
being.
you? What'd you say to him?
So he's 12, right? Let me just preface it by that. But my son amazes me because I feel like for his age, when I
How
like
old
go
is
into my
he?
spiel, huh?
How old is he?
He's 12, and
Okay. Oh
I told you
man.
I've been tapping into this since like 2018. So like he's been hearing these spills for like a few years now. And I give him his flowers because like for a 12-year-old kid, he could easily be like, bro, you are geeking out right now. Like this is not what I'm about. But every time I like tell him some things that I would call deep that I wish somebody would have told me, he's like listening, and you could tell like 70% of them is like his wheels are turning. And I'm like, that's all I need. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like so like the other day I was like talking, I think I was more so talking about like how, past, present, future, and I'm like, Caleb, I was like, randomly in the car, I feel bad on the way to like basketball. I know he's like, this is not what I'm trying to hear. But I was like, in trying to explain to him that the now is really what's important. I'm sure it linked back to some other conversation, but I go, you can never, like the past, you could never experience it. again, like, you know, like it's not experience. We can't do it. We have some memories. Like I can go run around a block right now and go do it again. It just will not be the same experience. You
Right.
know what I mean? And then I'm like, the future, obviously we can't experience that. And what we call the future, like it's happening like as we speak, like, and it's like gone already.
Yeah.
So I was like, so what does that tell you? And it's like, so like really like this conversation is the only real thing.
It. Yeah.
And I'm like, yes.
Whoa, he got that?
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, I'm like, yo, this dude, I'm like, that's good. I'm not gonna like, I used to try to force like meditation on him and stuff like that, but I learned my lesson. I'm like, I just would drop nuggets and, you know, like he'll pick it up if he wants to pick it up, he'll drop it if he wants to drop it. But it's at least he's getting some sort of like knowledge in this type of stuff, you know? So yeah, no, he's I tell him that all the time. But go ahead, about time. My bad.
No, I don't even know what I was saying. Oh, yeah, time, right. Okay. Well, first of all, your son is absolutely precious, and your daughter is absolutely precious. Like,
yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Children. And it's so apparent how present you are as a father. And I just have to say,
I appreciate that.
we appreciate that collectively as women. And, you know, you're definitely a role model and an inspiration for parents and other men. What I was getting at before was that I recall, like, weren't you working in higher education?
Yeah.
And then you must have been having this spiritual experience.
Yeah, I was working at
Rutgers. Talk about your like transition from higher ed to like what you're doing now. Like, yeah, let's
I know, crazy,
let's go
right?
there.
I know. So yeah, so out of college, every job I had was in like education and, you know what I mean, in higher ed. And so for the last 6 years, I had been working at Rutgers University.
Yeah.
And what happened was like, even while I was working, I was always super into like creating, you know, like, you know, I don't know if you know this, but like, I'm like a hip hop artist too, low key. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Can you rap some bars?
Oh, I haven't rapped in so long. Like,
you can come on here and say you're a hip hop artist.
Oh man, you put me on the spot.
How about kidding to put you on the spot like that?
How about I give you my my name and folks can go on Apple Music and Spotify and search
Tell us.
Giovanni Keys.
G-I-G-I-O.
I
remember you were doing some clothing, like you were creating clothing as well.
Yeah.
When's your birthday?
May 4th.
Oh, May the 4th be with you.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So you're a Taurus. Okay, cool.
I am. That's another topic, but that's the next thing I'm trying to get into. It's like astrology and like the moon and like, yeah, all types. Yeah. I'm not there yet, but that's what I'm trying to get into.
I'll just shout out right now, since we're talking about that and you're interested, my friend Sarah Nicole, she was my first guest on this podcast. Mm-hmm. Highly recommend listening to that episode. And then her Facebook is Twisted Goddess Tarot, and she does weekly astrology reports. She does,
okay.
Yeah. She made up the jewelry I'm wearing. She's my homie. But she's an expert in astrology. So
all right. So yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that.
You were in higher ed, but you were in your creative side.
In higher ed, you mentioned it. I had a clothing line, and then I basically was on like this mentorship program, and this lady was like basically like asking in podcast form, kind of just asking like, "Oh, what's everyone up to?" At the time, I was building a relationship app for people who like so you can date your partner better. That's what I was like. Yeah, that's what I was really into. Like, I mean, like I had like, focus groups and everything. Like, it was like, and I was trying to like raise funding for it. And then I said, "Oh, this is what I'm doing." And then she was just like, "Oh, that sounds cool." And I'm like, "What?" Like, I feel like it was like yeah, it just sounds cool. And I was like, "Okay." And then she goes, as an adult, what's like the most pain you've been through as an adult? And this was more to the group, and she was like, whatever that is, that's what you build a business around. And yeah, she's like, because I'm sure like hundreds of thousands of people are going through that. And I was like, literally, I right then and there on a call, I'm like, damn, I gotta like create something for dads. Like, like, and then so I got off the call, I started meditating, and then all of this stuff came to me, like 365 Dad, creating a journal for dads, coaching dads, teaching them how to tap into like higher self-awareness, like, and how to teaching them how to, manage like co-parenting adversity, fatherhood adversity. And I literally just like ran with it since that when that happened. And then last August, I just had this, I was like, it's time for me to like really pursue this. And man, I told people, like, a bunch of people were like, don't do it. Like, because it's like, I get it, it's like you're gonna give up like a secure thing, you're getting paid every 2 weeks, and they're like, this is my journal. I'm sure we'll talk about it, but like, I was showing somebody that before it was even printed, and they were like, did you sell a copy yet? And I was like, no.
No.
And they're like, well, why would you leave? And for me, it was just, I felt like I needed the time to like to properly invest in it, like, because I'm like a as I go type of person. So this journal, like, there's 365 prompts in it, but every single prompt came from like real life experiences. Like, I could like flip to any page and I could tell you what inspired me to write that prompt. You know what I mean? And I wanted to have more of those experiences. And I just felt like being at work for 8 hours and then like stressing out about it. It took a lot of time from my own development, and not the guy who's like, everyone needs to like quit their job and start, like, I'm not that guy either. But I just feel like for me personally, this is what I needed to do to like, to serve, to help, to create. I just had to do that. And then obviously, like, I felt back. I was like, and if it doesn't work out, I have an MBA. Like, I'm not stupid. I have children. So like, if it came down to it, and I couldn't provide food on the table, like, I'll go back into the workforce. But I tell you what, if I had to do that, it would be like way more intentional. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would it would have to align with like my values, and like just way different than your normal, like, I need a job search,
I love this. I love to hear this.
Yeah. And then January 5th, I just pulled the plug. I was like, this is happening. Pulled the plug January 5th. Right? It was super scary, but it wasn't at the same time. But it was only scary because so many people
aligned and protected.
You said, did I?
I said because you feel.
Oh,
but yeah. I guess I should have said, did you feel?
Well, I did, and it was just the people who were like, don't do it. That was what was a little scary for me. But like, I like sat my family down, and they were just like, yeah, like, for sure. And like, I remember I told my daughter's mom, so I co-parent with both of my kids' moms, and I told my daughter's mom, and she was like, go for it. Like, granted, she's like, like, we would still need these financial contributions like that. That's not going away. But she's like, but I'm a fan. I'm a fan of it. Go for it. You only have like this lifetime one, so just like go for it. And I was like, yeah, I'm going. And here we are. My journal should be coming out. It's being delivered to me from China right now. It's on a ship.
Okay.
I think it just hit California, so I should have the journals like within the next maybe 2 weeks to latest.
Oh my God, this is perfect timing.
It is. So
weird.
Yeah, right. Especially because we were looking to do it like earlier.
In February.
Yeah. So
weird.
Journal will be out in a couple weeks. Right now, my website is just mainly used for my writing, because every week I write like an article or a blog post. But once the journals are in possession, I'll publish the real site where it's like, which is already done. So like the journal stuff, the one-on-one coaching stuff is there, like the blogs are there. So I'm happy about it. And this is what I'm doing now, you know, and a big part of it, the weird part is people ask me, what do you do? And I'm like, so tough. So I've been like practicing this. So like, I think I nailed it down to, you know, but I think I nailed it down to, I basically teach dads how to like self-reflect and build a mindfulness practice. And that all has 1,000 ripple effects, you know, intentional communication, finding community. And that's what I do. I personal develop dads, but with an emphasis on self-reflecting and mindfulness. And that's it. Because I mean, when I started, I mean, it was terrible. Like trying to cultivate like a sustainable meditation practice is like a big deal. Like it's not easy. Like, you know, you do it for like 3 days and you're like, oh man, I'm out of here. Like, you know, like I'm journaling and I'm like, this method sucks. Nope, this is too much writing. Like you kind of have to have somebody in your ear, like try it this way maybe, or like be a little easy on yourself. You're being too hard on yourself. So that's kind of what I serve for dads. It's like, you know, like I never tell anybody that like, oh, you like tap into what I'm doing and you'll never have adversity. Like, no way. Like, I'm just going to help you better manage it. That's my big thing. Like, we're always going to come up against adversity. And it's just like, you know, I was in this marketing thing and they were like, you should use the word transcend. Like, you know, by people doing what you like your teachings and like this journal, they're going to transcend adversity. And I'm like, hell no, they won't. Like, so like you won't transcend adversity. Like you'll go through it, but you'll just manage it better. And that I'm a firm believer in. So yeah, here I am.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I want to share a little bit just to kind of like, I had a mirror type of experience where I was doing one thing professionally for a long time. I got kicked out of the matrix. That's what I call it. And kind of like free floated a little while, like doing just like kind of going off of my healing business and doing that. And now like you mentioned, you know, you always have like your credentials to fall back on, you know, and I think it's amazing that you took the risk and followed, like, to me, money will always follow joy. Love and money, love, and I mean romantic love as well, but self-love, that vibration of joy and what brings you happiness money is going to follow that. Like abundance in all forms are going to follow that. And I love that you took that leap of faith to like leave your job, your matrix, if you will, and you're just so passionate about this. So I just feel like a lot of abundance is going to come from this. And I also love that you mentioned that if you were to go back into the workforce, it would be with more intentionality, because now once you tap into that inner, you know, once you tap in, you can't unsee or go back. So what happened to me, this is why I took this 7-month hiatus. I'll just share with my listeners, viewers, whatever, however you're consuming this. I kept meditating because I'm like, what am I gonna do with my life? Like blah 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 blah. And then like what I believe to be like God or source, like the messages that kept coming were that I needed to go into the medical field, and I was like, that's effing crazy. I don't want to go into the medical field. But come to a happy medium place. I'm going back to school for occupational therapy assisting, which is like a total career change for me. But going back into work with intentionality, like you said. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, congrats on that. Like,
thanks. I took a final this morning. I got a 95 on it.
Oh, we lit.
It's weird. I used to be like such a hypochondriac, and now like I'm taking anatomy and physiology. I'm finishing the course with a 97.5 average. Like I just get it and I love it. So it's like I said, like joy, like pursuing what you love and what lights you up. because my plan is to include Reiki and energy work and prayer and holistic healing practices when I work, you know, wherever it happens, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what happens with you and your book. And so you said that you could flip through the book and you could recall what inspired the prompt. So we're going to do a little exercise.
Yeah, wow.
If you could just grab your book right there and just
That's
like
so
kind of
funny.
hold it closer to the camera. You should be I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
It looks like I love the vibe of the cover.
Yeah.
It's very like just homey to me in a good.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about that? You look like you want to talk about
Yeah, I was gonna give you a quick story about the cover.
Yeah, do it.
I had like I had like so many covers, and I was like asking all my friends which one is which one is better. I think I even put something on Facebook, like which one's better. And I decided, I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna do this contest, and I'm just gonna have people just send me entries, right? This was I had like 600 entries submitted. This was the second one, and this just spoke to me. I chose this cover, and this is important to me because I feel like we should do this more, especially like in life, business, whatever. Like, I have to have a part of me attached to this still. You know what I mean? Like, clearly and that these prompts are a part of me, but they relate to everyone else too. But I'm a big like nature, going on a hike guy,
Yeah,
and that's what this reminded me of. You know what I mean? And
me too. I love
yeah,
it.
like I
It looks
go
like
and I
home to
just
me.
yeah. So I'm like, you know what? I don't really care what anything else is happening. Like, I'm gonna choose the cover that kind of like speaks to me, you know, like intuition wise. And there we have it. So one of my friends was like, "Why you choose that ugly ass cover?" And I
Oh
was
my!
like, "I know, terrible," but
Everyone has an opinion.
which is fine. But I was like, you
Yeah,
know why I chose it? Because
I
like
love it.
this brings me like sanity, like so, and it worked out.
Yeah. So why don't you just open up randomly
Are
and
you serious? Oh man.
yeah,
Okay.
read the prompt.
Okay.
And then if you want to talk about what inspired the prompt, I'm here for that.
Yeah. Oh, this is an easy one.
Oh,
So
is it easy?
yeah. So basically there's four like pillars, right? There's four. So based on the symbol at the top, that's what the prompt is going to be about. So there's a
Okay.
symbol for mindfulness, there's a symbol for self-reflection, there's a symbol for like strengthening your relationships, and then there's a symbol for community. So this prompt is a self-reflection prompt, and it says, what was the most significant sacrifice you've made thus far for your children?
Woo!
Yeah, and so for me, this is like,
Damn.
yeah,
I
this is
needed
super
to hear
easy.
that.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on it before, like, you know, when I was going through my custody battle, like 2000 and like 17 to 2020, and once I realized that, oh, this is not gonna go, just like this is past the mediation thing, right? This is like lawyers and stuff like that. And I'm like, all I want to do is see my son as much as his mom, right? And I think that would benefit him if he just saw both of it. Like, you know, like I didn't really want to be just like the weekend dad thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And man, when I tell you, like, I spent $80,000
Yeah.
on lawyer fees. It has put me through tremendous debt. You know what I mean? There were times where that choice made me, you know, miss meals and stuff like that. Like, you know what I mean? And I look back at it and I'm like, I see my son a lot. You know what I mean? It's like they don't count overnights. They only count overnights in percentages wise. So technically it's like a 40, 45, 50 thing, right? But if he was overnights with me on the Sundays, it would be consider your typical 50-50. So like I see him as much as his mom sees him in some capacity. And when I was going through this, I was like, my lawyer was like, man, like, you don't have anything to prove, you know? He's like, we could stop now. You know what I mean? Because he was just like, man, this is like a lot. I know it's emotionally taxing, but if I would have stopped when he was saying that, my son would have like saw me like 4 times a month or something. And I'm just like,
Oh,
and at that moment, it's easy to think, yeah, well, you're just doing this for yourself. But I knew he would be better if he spent more time with me.
mhm.
Not compared to his mom, but more time than we had. I knew that would benefit him. And I'm like, we're going to continue to do this. And I did it with grace, but I continued to do it. And so yeah, I think that was probably the most significant sacrifice, is like completely putting myself in like financial turmoil so I can like spend more time with my son, for sure.
Which loops me back to that woman that really shifted you when she said your greatest pain is going to
Yeah.
business. And
Yeah.
it all just like, well, that's just kind of how I am as like a shamanic practitioner and healer. I could just like put pieces together. It's weird. Anyway,
No,
like,
I know you do Reiki, so yeah, I
yeah,
gotta tap in with you.
yeah, your pain of this experience has turned into this gorgeous book that
Yeah.
you created. And I find that if you listen to the other episodes of the podcast, or you just read your Alan Watts books or whatever, it's like we do go through this journey, and our deepest pain and suffering, if we can alchemize it, right? Like you did,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't turn away from the pain. You went into the pain and
Mm-hmm.
and really kind of dissected the pain. You know what I mean? And now turning it into
Yeah.
a beautiful, like, have you ever heard have you heard of kintsugi art, Japanese art? It's
Yeah.
okay. So it's when the pieces are broken, but they put them back together using gold. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
literally what you've done, and it's really outstanding. And like you should be proud of yourself, because
Yeah, thanks.
I'm
Thanks.
proud.
That was a great analogy. Yeah. Like this is like my favorite quote about all of this. I
Yeah.
always say like fatherhood for me has been the most joyous and rewarding of experiences, while it has also been the most like isolated and like frustrating, and this feeling of like not being appreciated, and like that. So it's like, yeah, it's the best thing in the world for me, but it also brings me like a lot of pain, you know what I mean, a lot of,
Yeah.
especially internal pain. When it comes to like feeling undervalued, or like
Mm-hmm.
I always tell this story of like my son having a what is it called, appendicitis, is that what's called, appendicitis, when you get your appendix removed.
Yeah.
This is like 3 years ago, and like his mom and I are like at the hospital, and a couple days we're there, and I would say between those 2 days, I don't know, 15 times, someone on the staff came into the room to give updates to us, pre-surgery, post-surgery. And I promise you, every single time a nurse, a doctor came into the room, not one person that looked at me, right? Like all the
One person
updates,
looked at you.
not one. It's like I was invisible. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like, mom is clearly the only one that cares about the well-being of the child. And that, man, that did a number on me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
That was actually one of the big reasons why I also started this, is because like I know so many dads feel like underappreciated or undervalued. Like I go to parent teacher conferences, and like they don't even like really make eye contact with me. It's like everything that they're talking about is like they're directing it to the moms. And that, I'm like, that has to change. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it will be different. Like, yeah, if there was no mother figure and I was just like super single dad, they would have no choice but to look at me because I'm the only person there. But when we both show up into the space, I think we both should be treated on an equal playing field. And
Oh my
because
God, I love this even more.
yeah,
I'm all about the being a catalyst for change. And it's interesting because like lately I've been coming into contact with more very present fathers. And I mean, I feel like at this point I feel like you and I could just talk for a really long time about all
yeah,
the things because there's so many like other things I want to talk about.
yeah,
But I think it's really important because that's transcending like that the stigma of like yeah, I'm just with you on that of being an advocate for fathers and um having equal attention and opportunities and all of
yeah,
that. So
yeah. And this is in no way, shape, or form like trying to minimize, what moms do, and you know what I mean.
oh no, it doesn't feel like
Um,
that at all.
so it's more so just like a man, I'm here too. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so
Yeah,
yeah.
heck yeah. Well, awesome. So we're kind of coming up on time, but I always have my people on the podcast. Is there anything else that you feel called to share or like anything you want to say?
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. I did not. So you would think I prepared for this question, but I didn't prepare for it. But I'm glad that you asked that question
Okay.
because um this has been on my mind a lot just in my real life. So I was like, this is a perfect platform to and
Okay.
this also comes from Alan Watts. I don't know. I think he was quoting somebody else though, but
You are an
um
Alan Watts pusher, okay?
fanatic.
We're
But
gonna have to tag Alan in this podcast. Like I
oh
don't
man.
know him or anything like
No,
that.
Alan has left us physically many years ago. So
Oh, see, oh,
yeah,
maybe Alan is here with us spiritually.
you're right. You're right. Um, but right now I feel like, especially in this side of the world, there's just so much like racial divide, racial tension, and everything is like just a lot of divisive language and
Yeah.
and
Even
something
gender division,
yeah,
gender and racial division.
gender and racial for sure. Um, be, so because in my real life, I've dealt with this, right? Because um, something I want to say to everyone is, so I'm going to give it in example of you and I, right? So like this is perfect because we're different gender, different race, right? So the quote is basically, I only know me through you, right? And so on a like super plain level, it's like, oh, how do I know that I'm considered a guy? Well, because I know what a girl looks like, right? Like, how do I know that I'm tall? Because I know what somebody short looks like. That's the only way I can describe myself is by knowing other people. And, and even something as like a little deeper as like some people say, oh man, like, I think I'm emotionally intelligent. Why would you say that about yourself? Like, how do you know that? Because you probably know someone else who you think is not that, right? So it's like, if we truly, if you think about it, only know ourselves because of the other people around us, that's like, they should get a lot of credit. You know what I mean? And with that being said, they should be treated better. So that's just like my pitch for people to just like, no matter what gender, no matter what race, no matter what orientation, like people should really just kind of treat everyone with compassion because like without your neighbor or that random person around the corner, you wouldn't have your own identity. You wouldn't be able to be like, oh, I'm this or I'm that. So I think that's important. And it just helps me like appreciate people I come in contact with because I'm like, man, like this person is literally like plays a huge role in how I view myself. And without
Yeah.
even me knowing that, you know what I mean? So that was it. That's my calling. that's what I want to share.
Well, thank you. And also thank you for bringing that up. And this might be because I have a Virgo moon and I'm an overthinker. But when I introduced you and said I was very excited to have you as a man and an African American, I was like trying to be politically correct.
Yeah.
But you are Jamaican. And so I'm sorry if I like fucked that up, quite frankly. And this is a
No.
raw take, and I want people to hear me say this, but like I am so grateful to have you, and I hope I did not mean or
No.
offend. And I'm,
No.
but I'm
No.
glad that you just brought that up because I was going to bring that up at the end and say like that I had said that, but you're Jamaican, and
Yeah.
sorry if I fucked that up. It's a really weird world we live in now, and I'm an all-inclusive type of person. Just the way that, like you said about spirituality, like it's good if you believe and you believe, but like when you're telling other people what they can and can't believe is like kind of that similar concept.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I want to be all inclusive. But we live in this world of 2024 where there's so many politically correct, and like to me, you're just like a soul brother human, you know?
That's
So
all it is. So it was great.
it's been awesome having you on the podcast.
Yeah.
Do a little shout out for yourself. How can people connect with you if they want to connect with you? How do they get the book?
Yep. So they can get the book at 365dad.com, and that's spelled out THREESIX 5dad. 365dad fully spelled out.com. And right now, if you go to that website, there's going to be an option to kind of like tap into joining like a wait list. But just know that within like the next 2 to 3 weeks, it will be live. So, and then really Instagram, I would say, is the best way to connect with me because that's where I do a lot of like talking head videos, and that's where I explain a lot of things about meditation and fatherhood. I explain a lot of things about journaling. So that's _Odeani. That's my name on Instagram, _ODEANI. And yeah, I'm excited, and just follow the journey.
Yay! Okay, I'm so excited. Thank you so much again for being here, and thanks to everyone that tuned in and listened or watched or whatever. If you resonate with Odeani, and you're a dad doing your thing out there and you want to be more spiritually connected and more reflective, please go get his book, get on the wait list. And yeah, that's it for me for today. So thanks so much.